Hey everyone, Yasin here, and welcome to another episode of Pointy Chins, where I take you through my art journey. Alright, so we're continuing with the Wraith designs. There's over 100 goddesses, and they're all a bit different. So for this one, she's Galoo, and she's the goddess of rainbows, and it's kind of a different character than I'm used to doing, but I figure it's kind of good to have all these different types because they make you get out of your comfort zone and explore new things. And I guess that's one of the things that come with creating any kind of a world is you end up having to populate the world with characters that probably aren't the ones you're normally used to doing, and that can be good. So I figure she's going to be very colorful, or chromatic at least, like maybe not super colorful, but got a lot of colors within. I think of things like opals, which have a lot of colors, but they're not like super bright colors in a way. I mean, I guess some of them are, but a lot of them aren't. And with her, I kind of wanted a spin on things. I had this idea that maybe, and it's kind of explained here, how the goddess of time observes many futures, and in a lot of the futures, and I'm not sure if this is what the goddess of time does now, but basically someone who just looks at potential things that could happen. And in a lot of potentialities, there was this, well, not her, but this like evil person that lays waste to the heavens. And to prevent this from happening, they found this person and gave them godhood and made everything okay. I don't know. So anyway, this is the character. I kind of like the end result. I wasn't super happy with the beginning, but I figure she's probably going to be one of the more main characters, and she has a marking of a rainbow underneath her bangs, which is not what the other goddesses have, but I figure she's kind of an exception to a lot of the rules. So that's her. And then I wanted to figure out the goddess of strength. So this is Thea. And her crest, like this one, I wanted to go for something that feels strong, like a lot of energy going downwards. And I wanted her to look very powerful, but I didn't want her personality to be really mean or anything. I wanted her to be kind of nice. And also, I don't really see too many super buff female characters. I guess now there are more in popular culture. When I was growing up, there weren't really too many of those. But anyway, so with the crest, I had a few versions where first I was thinking like that, and then like that. And I got to this one, and then finally this, where it's like an arrow that's going down, and it feels like it hits the ground and debris flies out. And again, keeping things super simple and yet telling a story is really important. So of these designs, I kind of like this one where she's almost like a mecha, but not too much. Like it just felt like maybe not all the time, because it didn't really fit the idea I had for her, which was for her to be more of a companion to Wraith. And I figure like Wraith and Galoo and Thea could kind of be a trio. And I considered at one point just hiding a lot of her, because of this idea that truly strong people don't need to flaunt it. At least that's kind of how I think of things, that when you're really strong, you don't have to show that you're strong. So what would a truly strong person do? And I figured she's quite kind. She doesn't want to hurt anyone. She likes challenges and she likes to fight, but more like sparring and competitive sports rather than, just killing people. She's not really into that. But I had a lot of trouble with the designs, with the designs of Taya. I felt like I am missing a lot. And so an artist who I think does designs really well is an artist called N-Shark. And I figured, okay, I can now do studies of other artists with a very specific goal in mind. I'm not after N-Shark's compositions, although I think those are pretty cool, or his colors, or this or that. I'm just after basic design and trying to see what I would do and then how he would do it and where I'm falling short. So I put his designs on the side for you to see. So, I mean, clearly his are cooler, way more appealing. But these were things I wanted to get. Some things he has are, like, he won't just use one or two colors. He'll usually have, like, 3 colors, sometimes 4. And he has a lot of different elements. And I tend to have one design element, which I then repeat, for instance, with this one, right? If you look at this, there's not that many extra things. It's like, yeah, you've got a lot of this motif going on, but it just feels like 2 things. Like there's her skin and then there's her armor. Whereas with this, it's usually more different things. And there's this monkey character. And one thing I also noticed, these are all my preliminary observations. I notice he uses more colors than I do, and this forced me to have to get more water brushes with more ink, and that was a good thing. The other thing I noticed are his poses are way better, and he has like subtle asymmetry, where sometimes I'll go pretty crazy with asymmetrical design, and with him it's a bit more subtle. And he also has things like elements from behind which move. For instance, in this one, the tail of the monkey. This one, these flowy bits. And that really helps when there's movement in a piece to showcase that movement. So yeah, I think this was one of the more helpful times, although I found I didn't retain as much as I wanted to, but I did pick up on certain things he was doing. And so I did some more studies of his stuff, and that also led me to try to explore colors more, because I had more colors and I wanted to see, well, what can you do? So I did this little color chart, which I would really recommend, because you get to learn, like, oh, okay, I can mix all these different colors from just, it looks like 3 colors. So that's really good. The yellow is actually a Copic marker, but the others are just ink in a water brush. So, yeah, I mean, these observations, you can just combine a few things. He has big things like zippers and buttons. He makes them very prominent. For instance, see here, like a big zipper, big glasses, oversized things. But they all kind of work together. And he uses more than one design motif. For instance, you have stars here, but also these sharp triangle shapes, bigger shapes, chunkier shapes, and these knobbly horn things. And so, yeah, that was all good. And then I tried to do an N-Shark type design, like, well, if you design something, and I really didn't succeed, I feel. Maybe it was something more than I could have done before, but it's a bit random. I found that he has more of an idea, like in this case, you kind of get a made outfit combined with certain futuristic elements and stuff. So what I did learn, which is here, can't stand real world designs. I learned in a way what I don't like and what I do like. I like teal and pink stuff a lot, which was kind of what I already knew. And yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. So here's a teal and pink color. I mean, it's not really pink, but yeah, I like this color scheme. So what I did think is, okay, so I don't necessarily like doing the same elements as he does, but I want a nice result, and I think his result is really appealing. So I thought, what do I like? And can I just kind of go through all of the things and sort of add them up? So I like exposed shoulders, or if they do have shoulders, like, or not exposed shoulders. I like shoulder pads and things, but not as much a fan of like regular covered shoulders, which kind of feel very real world. Again, I like high collars, ornamented collars. I like cut out things, and I didn't like how this turned out. I like these types of bits I found, and different cutouts, different butts, and it was a pretty good exercise, I feel, to find different things, like just explore from a very, very basic stage, like even like this, like, what do you like? Because I found I never really thought about it too much, or I would have preferences, but I never gave enough time to those preferences. And I think that is something that is really important. I suppose a lot of good artists do give time to what they really like and really try and hone in on that and figure it out. And for me, I was just sort of oblivious. I would look at things I liked. I might save images, but I never considered in detail, what exactly about this do I like? And because I didn't do that, then it becomes harder to incorporate those elements. So I wanted to even just think about, what types of shapes do I like? I like kind of sharp shapes, arrow shapes. I don't really like boxy shapes, but the problem with that is then it's hard to get forms, or it's harder in some ways to get forms. So like boxy things, spherical things, prism-like things, prismatic, I don't know if that's how it's... Anyway, those things tend to show form, whereas a lot of my shapes are kind of flat, which isn't the best. And so I was doing some observations about what Enshark has and what I have. So I have like maybe this many elements if you count what I was doing in these images. And Enshark has way more, and way more different things. So again, it was an understanding that I still need to work on things, but I wasn't sure if just doing more was, like, if I just kept doing stuff, would I improve just based on mileage, or is it important to copy someone else? And I found for me, actually, the mileage way does work, and copy or studying once in a while is good, but I find just doing it, and I'm a few months ahead of where I am here in this episode, and so I do feel like I have improved a bit in design, and that just comes from doing a lot of it. So I think doing things a lot is fine, but also stuff like this, like just figuring out what you like and why. So this is something a bit more typical, which it's okay. But I prefer these types of things, even though the shapes are a bit wonky. Like these types of long sleeves and big collars, but things cut out, where here it exposes the shoulders and the waist and things like that, the abs. And so I did this character, throw in some random star bandage things just because N-Shark does it again, but not something I would stick with through on a tail, but it is something that it's just trying things and seeing what you can pick up from it. I like this guy though. It's pretty cool. All right, so I thought I would, now that I actually had these colors, I could have like a teal color and a pink color. It's like, well, Kay's teal and she has pink hair, so maybe I could try a Kay, but it didn't really look like Kay. Because the colors aren't really the right ones. The pink is a bit too desaturated and the teal is a bit too dark of a value and a bit too saturated. So I tried this like an alternate color scheme for her if she was a regular person. And I don't know, I thought it looked kind of cool. And kind of like these designs too. Here just trying to figure out basic things like how long do I like these things on the body. And I like to make my designs so they follow anatomical landmarks. I like to do that a lot. Like with K, for instance, this cutout kind of follows the deltoid. So the bicep would be here, the tricep underneath, but this V separates the deltoid, so it cuts it on an anatomical landmark, I guess. Not super happy with these, although I don't mind the hair in this. I like how, and I don't mind the pose, how she's like got this white at the bottom. That's kind of cool. So I felt after doing all those studies and kind of thinking about things for a while, I had a bit more education to tackle Taya again. And the first thing I did is I thought about what if she was an Olympic wrestler, and I looked up like this isn't to make her an Olympic wrestler. I just thought like let me just draw her as an Olympic wrestler and put kind of their types of clothing. So of course I modified it, just made up the uniform, but in terms of the cut and things like the knee pads and how the shoes are and stuff, that's kind of reference. So I thought, okay, if I take this, then I can create a design that's evocative of that. So it's not necessarily the same design, but it has certain elements that make you think of that design. So for instance, ending like if she has, I don't know what material this would be, but it ends at the same area roughly as I think this is a unitard, I think. I'm not sure. Anyway, and then I still wanted, shoulder armor, neck armor, things like that, but I wasn't 100% sure. So I eventually came to this design, which I thought was pretty good. It's a lot simpler than this one, for instance, which is very complicated, and it doesn't have a strong feeling. And I'm a big fan of simple designs where I still like ones that are complicated and look cool, but I've noticed that with simple designs, they're much easier to read in terms of who is what character. So I think of shows like Naruto, for instance. I think the designs are they're not necessarily my favorite designs, but I do feel like it's easy to tell who's who. Even from a very, very big distance, you can tell the difference between the characters. And that was something that I thought was cool. And I also thought they tend to have visual motifs that carry over different characters that create a bit of a relationship. So, for instance, there's a character called Orochimaru, and he had like a group of people who were kind of on his team, and they all had this purple obi thing around their, like a rope obi around their waist, and it just ties all the designs together, and it makes them feel cohesive, like they're all part of the same thing, but it's not so over the top where they're all labeled, or they're all wearing the same uniform or something like that. Similar to, I suppose you could say, with X-Men, they all have the X symbol on them somewhere. I'm not sure if they do anymore, but just speaking from the comics, especially the ones I was reading in the 90s and stuff, they all had X symbols. And here's a Mezra. I figure Mezra and Taya don't like each other because she's kind of tough, but not necessarily intelligent, but kind and gentle. And he just likes to prank people and make fun of them and stuff. So I figured these two wouldn't get along well, but that he would enjoy teasing her just because she is sort of gullible and things. And here, yeah, I just thought Wraith and Galoo and Teia would make a kind of interesting team. Here's Vialfa, who's the goddess of knowledge, and she's antisocial and has a cat. Yeah. And I figure she has these glasses that she can read anything super fast, and she doesn't need to rest or anything. And I thought, well, yeah, for a goddess of knowledge, that would be handy. I would want such a thing. So I started to think again about Teia, and I thought about a shape. Like, if I could think of her and a shape, what would I think of? And I thought of this type of shape. I don't know if it's kind of like an axe shape. And I don't know why, but it was the first shape that came to mind, and it seemed right. And so I already have her at a point where I'm kind of happy with the design, but it could go a bit further. So I thought, okay, well, let's take this regular design, like super simplified, and let's throw on this type of shape. So first I did this shape, then I simplified it to this shape. I actually prefer the smaller shape. So I created this like collar thing with that shape in mind, and then I added a bit of things, added like this thing to support her breasts, and then I thought, okay, that's okay, but it's a bit too big. It's kind of in the way, and so here I just simplified it. I made it smaller, and it's one of those things where less is more. Sometimes you'll look at complicated designs and it seems cool, especially nowadays with a lot of designs in video games and things, because they're 3D characters, they tend to have a ton of stuff on them. And on one hand, it looks done and detailed and cool, but on the other hand, it's a bit cluttered. It's it just doesn't feel as natural. So that's something that I kind of want to not fall into, where the designs are overly cluttered. And I am a big fan of minimalism. So I also thought if she has a weapon, I could use this shape as well. So then it's kind of like a staff, but it's got a blade on it. But I imagine she wouldn't use too much of the blade. Here's just some commentary. These people aren't related to Teia. I just had the same colors because that's what I had available. She's asking, is he finished with this Teia person, Harold? I surely hope so, Shirley. All right. And just wanted to do a side view, a back view, and get kind of a sense of her and what can be done. This was a very big learning experience, just learning that I didn't have to go crazy detailed. Having things kind of like a bandage on her arm can add visual interest without necessarily having to add too much. Because if there's not enough, things fall into the category of feeling unfinished, and that's where a lot of my stuff goes. But if you have too much, then it's cluttered. So it's a balance between, you don't want things to be cluttered, but you don't want them to be unfinished either. So here's Rava, the goddess of pain and suffering, and I didn't have black as ink, so I was using blue wherever I wanted it to be black. And I figure she's like a pretty horrible person. She's sadistic, and not really, she doesn't really care about other people's feelings too much, and she enjoys people suffering. And at first I thought of like some fancy design. I wasn't sure what to do with her. I thought of some kind of idea like this, like her skin is pure white, but she has like black streaks coming down. And I thought that's an okay idea. Maybe she has like different cut up limbs or something like that. And I thought, I thought maybe she's half white and she has like I really hate these images, by the way. They're awful. Maybe she has like cuts in her ears and stuff, or this. And I liked the the eyes being inverted, where one is like a black sclera with a white iris, and the other one has a colored iris and a white sclera. And also the gums, which are white gums with black teeth. I thought that was kind of interesting as an idea. Just taking what you normally would consider or expect, and then just flipping it sometimes can make very original designs. It's never a good sign when Rava is happy. And then I thought of her having a divine weapon. So with Wraith, he has this divine mirror. He actually has the divine sword and the divine mirror. And the divine sword can cut down anyone. And the divine mirror, well, you'll see how that's used. But I figure with her, she could have like a, I don't know what to call it here. I called it the divine ribbon. And it's basically this thing that does this, like all these things around her are connected to this creature, which is actually sort of sentient. And then they like come and wrap a person up, and then she can torture them. And this is one of the characters where I really like, in terms of visual I don't know, design, I just don't really like the character, but I did that on purpose. I kind of included a lot of things that I'm not too okay with, because I don't really like sadistic people. And so I thought, well, I also don't like people with no eyebrows. It looks creepy. So I gave her no eyebrows, or at least one eye with no eyebrow. And I don't really like this cut of things, the way these are cut. But again, it sort of helped to make a character, and they don't have to be someone I personally like. They can be someone I don't like, and that can work too. So yeah, I eventually gave her these types of shoes. So I think that's also a learning thing where, a design doesn't have to be one you necessarily like. It can, as long as it works in a way or it tells the right story, it still can be good. So here we have the goddess of medicine. I figure she's rather dull, but very interested in her own work. And she has a lot of stories of her patients. It's kind of how I think of it. If you give her the time, she can really talk to at length about who she met and what her patient was and what disease they had and what was wrong with them and all sorts of things. But I also think she kind of seems tired all the time because she probably doesn't get much sleep. She's very busy, like a workaholic type. Here's Hadema, who's the goddess of justice. And again, she's kind of tired because I feel like she's the type of person who must really have to consider everything very carefully. And that must be pretty draining. Here's Yuzu, who's the goddess of youth. And I think she's much more lively and fun, but also younger, so not really like these other goddesses. And I feel like the goddess thing is, I may not even call them goddesses in the end, but it's an idea that I just want a lot of range to do different types of characters. And I think this is pretty helpful it gives you kind of a limitation on one hand, but a lot of freedom on the other. And I think having both freedom and limitations really helps when you're trying to create design. So with Tessa, I was thinking a lot of Kay. The eyes are similar to Kay. The mouth, not so much, but she's got a lot of feeling of Kay. And first I had this design. The first design is almost always a throwaway. I just want to put down whatever my first ideas are so I have them on the page. And I feel once I have them on the page, then I can do something with them. So I don't know why I put bandages everywhere, but I do know the point of it all being fitting is that kind of like in the Olympics when she's a goddess of speed, so in any kind of sport that requires speed, usually things are very form-fitting. So I wanted them to be very form-fitting. I didn't want her to have a lot of clunky stuff around her. I didn't want heavy armor or anything like that. I wanted everything to be very streamlined and very fast. And so diagonals are also things that are very quick. They feel quick. Triangles, diagonals, things like that have a sense of speed to them. But I wasn't really happy with these designs. So I really had to think about things like this, like what makes things look fast. And I thought, well, triangles, diagonals, wings, fins, long things, sleek things, shiny things, smooth things, things that are sort of pulled backwards. What I mean by that is kind of, if you had long hair and you ran really fast, your hair would be pulled backwards, or if you had a cloak or something like that. So thinking about things like fighter jets and how the shapes are very streamlined but have or even sharks, right? The fins, they're kind of pulled towards the back. Arrows, crescents, straights, and things like vents. So with those in mind, I tried to put some of those into her design. I ended up with a lot of these long, sharp shapes, which they might be fast, but they felt like they'd be in the way. And so I got to these designs, and especially this one, and I liked it a lot more. So I started with these very big, sharp shapes, and I thought of it like this. Like, okay, so that's the shape I initially have. Let's simplify it and try and maintain some of that feeling, but reduce it. So I got to these types of very subtle, small shapes, but they kind of have that pulled backwards, shark fin, aerodynamic type of feeling to them. And again, it was a lot of less is more. So if you look at this design, it's quite complicated, but if you look at this one, it's very simple, but to me it feels a lot better. And just having these small shapes, the medium shapes, and then the large empty resting areas really helped. So I settled on a design kind of like this, and it's okay. I would say it's not great, but it's pretty nice. I guess I like this one better still, but it's close enough. It's still pretty cool. And okay, continuing on. So this is the goddess of luck and fortune. I didn't want to have her in these colors at all, but these are the only water brushes I have or had at the time. So I just went with it. But the colors are supposed to be more, here it says like more gold and black, maybe, for things. This one I thought was really ugly, but it kind of had this sparkly feeling that I was going for. I think of like some goddess who gives you luck, and she's not really discriminate in who she gives luck to. So she could give you luck, or maybe not, and maybe give someone else luck. Basically, she's not a good character, but she's not a bad character either. She's kind of neutral. And so you could get lucky with her, or you could not. And again, I started with a design and then simplify and change and see what I like and what I don't like. So sometimes I get it right the first time, sometimes I really don't. And in this case, I guess I didn't get it right at first. And even later on, it's not perfect, but it's closer. And these are by no means final designs. I will revisit these characters. So you'll get to see, if you stick with me in this journey, you'll get to see how they all change and eventually get to their final designs. So here's the goddess of fertility. And this one was kind of hard. It's a bit, I suppose it could be considered politically incorrect, but I think of things like traditionally what is considered an object of fertility, and I thought of like the African fetish statue things and how they would have very large breasts and I thought, okay, so that could work. But then I just started thinking of a real life person I knew, and so I just gave her those kind of qualities where she's very altruistic, but deep inside she's quite selfish. And what she does is kind of help people get pregnant, and so she helps men and women. And what I thought about with the goddesses, I haven't talked about this yet, but with the idea of, what kind of goddess do you make? Do you make goddess of calculators, or goddess of what do you make goddess of this or that? And I thought the way I should think about it is, what would someone pray to? So the reason I have a goddess of fertility is because I figure if there's someone who's impotent, who would they pray to? Well, they'd probably pray to the goddess of fertility. Or a woman who can't conceive, then maybe she'd pray to the goddess of fertility. If there's someone who feels really unlucky, maybe they're a gambler and they would pray to the goddess of luck. Maybe you have a farmer who he wants rain for his crops, so he'd pray to the goddess of rain. So although I think of the goddesses, when I make them, I think about sort of what they embody, like what is rain to me. And so for this one, I feel like rain can be calming, like if it's raining and it hits the roof, it can sort of calm you. It can be fickle. Sometimes it's raining and then it's not. I think of it as moody because of all the clouds, and it feels very moody to me. And then I just add, so I combine that, which is what are the aspects of rain, and then what is a personality that kind of feels like this? Like if I just think about outside of rain, what is calm and fickle, and who is calm and fickle and moody? Do I know anyone who's kind of like this? Is there any reference point I have to develop this? So that's the second one. And then the other one is, what would people pray for? And so with these three things, it really helps me to figure out the character. So with Devana, she's very tall. They're not tall, it's not like her legs end way down here. Her legs are probably around here. Like her feet probably end about here, but a lot of the goddesses have these extremely long robe type things, and I feel it makes them look more imposing, maybe more regal, more elegant. I think a lot about again, the empresses, or even, bridesmaids have the long trains or things like that, but just how elegant that can look, and it makes a very interesting silhouette. So with her, I just have this super big, long, sharp shape, which I think is really cool. I made her hair really long because it feels kind of like rain falling. So yeah, that's kind of the design process. So here I wanted to explain the divine mirror. So this divine mirror has actually a couple components. So there's this part, which is the belt, and it comes with a free shoulder pad for no reason, just whatever. And it's like a long thing that's kind of like fabric, but not really. It's not super rigid, but it becomes rigid. And I don't know about that. Like, it might get more rigid. But anyway, the way it works is it's a defensive tool. So on one hand, Wraith has a sword that can cut anything, but he also has this mirror. And the reasons for this I'll explain later. There are reasons for all of this. But what it does is basically it makes a copy of the thing that he's facing. So in this case, he's poking this beast, and then the beast is mad. And Wraith, something to understand about Wraith is he's a coward. He doesn't like fighting. He looks tough, and he knows how to fight because Aaron trained. But Aaron trained a lot to learn how to fight so he wouldn't have to fight, because he doesn't like fighting, and he's very scared, and he's afraid of pain, and he doesn't want to get into trouble. And so he practiced fighting, and he got big and strong so people would think he is good at fighting, so no one's going to mess with him because he really doesn't like fighting. So when he ends up getting this, so these weapons, these divine tools, they're from Mesera. So Mesera originally is wearing these things, and Wraith just inherits them because when he's inhabited by Mesera's spirit through the possession, he gets the divine tools for free. And so what happens is it creates a copy of whatever this original is, and then they fight and he runs away. And because it's a copy, it can duplicate all the movements they do, so you end up just getting stuck fighting yourself. But for instance, if there was a wall here and he made a copy and this guy walked forward a meter, then this guy would walk forward but then hit the wall and probably trip and fall down. So you have to be strategic about how you cast it. And I try to think about all of these things kind of like a video game where whatever tool you have, there's an advantage to it, but there's also a disadvantage, and you have to use it in a careful way. When I think about Wraith as a concept, I think I would be happiest if it was a video game, really, because I would like to play different characters and have access to these characters. And so when Nagi, she's the goddess of travel, and what I think about is kind of in a game, you might need a character, or you might need an option to fast travel, right? To go from one area to another area. And Nagi could facilitate that. So on one hand, the designs are like, they're just for what people would pray for. But on the other hand, they can really help if Wraith was ever a thing, a game or something like that. It could help. So I was thinking, what kind of hat would she have? For some reason, I felt like she should have a hat. I considered having this kind of hat. But then I remembered, I don't need to do things that are things. Like, a hat can be this, but because it's my world, I can really do anything. So this could be a hat. Why not? So I gave her this type of thing. Yeah, it feels more Psychra-like. And that was cool. And then it's like, okay, so then I changed her design to fit with this and copied more of these shapes. And I was much more happy with it that way. I'm just making a sort of a mental note that if you put the chin too far forward, it can look a bit masculine. So reducing the chin makes things look a lot more feminine. And that was just something I had to keep in mind. So she carries this wand thing, and that's her divine tool, and it can make portals to any place that she's already been, but she can't go to anywhere that she hasn't been. So in video game context, what that would mean is, it's pretty useful and it's pretty self-explanatory that you go to a place, and as long as you've visited that place, you can fast travel there again. But if she hasn't visited there, then you can. And because in the beginning, when you first encounter her, she's probably already been to a few places, so she'll be able to take you to those places. But if you have to go to some completely unknown area, then she won't be able to, take you there. But maybe she'd be able to take you close to that area. So again, very video game-minded RPG type stuff. So this is Madra, and she's the goddess of war, and she's kind of what Teia isn't. So Teia's the goddess of strength, and I wanted her to be sort of gentle and nice, whereas Madra's the goddess of war, and she's very brutal. She thinks that, you've got to get things done, and war isn't pretty. And so when I thought of weapons for her, I thought of things like serrated edges, just because they're more brutal. She's not graceful at all. But she actually respects Teia a lot because Teia's really strong, and Teia is stronger than her. So if they were ever to fight, if they were sparring, Teia would probably win. And because of that fact, Madra looks up to her. But Teia doesn't like her because of, she's just using everything for very violent ends. and she thinks war is necessary, and these are just things, and if you don't agree with that, you're kind of naive. And so, yeah, that's her. And contrasting her is Yenna, who's the goddess of peace. And I figured I wanted, like, what is peace? And I thought of, like, two things coming together. So she has one strand of hair or one side of her hair is one color, and then one's another, and then they kind of are intertwined in this braid, and then they are mixing. And to me, that was my idea of something peaceful. The same thing here is you have, like, these two circles, and when they combine, they're all, well, there's four of them, but they're kind of like togetherness and peace and harmony. When I think of her kind of in a way of a very kind person, careful with her words, and very forgiving, and trying to always look beyond and see the good in people, but a bit naive, perhaps, and perhaps taken advantage of, or not really given as much respect as she should get, I feel. With Shai, she's the goddess of ice, and the names are also something that are kind of hard for me to come up with. I mean, I'm okay with names, but I still have to think about them, and it's the same with the crests. Like, there's a lot of thinking going on in terms of what crest do I use? How do I represent ice, or the feeling of ice? Not necessarily ice, but yeah, the feeling of ice, but in a very, very simplified way. So it can just be a symbol. And things like these earrings that kind of are just two V shapes, and they feel crispy. And having this very crispy feeling feels good to me as like an icy thing. And so, yeah, I thought of her as kind of unreliable in some ways, and very arrogant, very vain. She's quite pretty, but not... I mean, you can't really depend on ice, you know? It's... If you step on ice, you'll either slip, or maybe it'll break and you'll fall in a lake or something. I don't know, but yeah, that's my thought process with her. And for her name, it's kind of just a cold. Like, when I say it, it feels kind of cold. And here's Erza, who's the goddess of wind. So sometimes the name has something to do with like air and wind, and so Erza is close, so it feels like wind. Sometimes it's like that, and sometimes it's just the name has maybe an onomatopoeic feeling in a way. And so I figure she's kind of okay as a person, very determined, very strong-willed, has her own ideas about things and how things should be done, but not really, doesn't really like jokes, doesn't like fooling around. And I also have to think of what are the qualities of air. And so, you know, she's kind of an airhead. She can be gentle or fierce, because air, you know, it could be a gentle breeze, or it could be something very fierce. So, yeah, I think the funniest part of her was this last line, that she acts disinterested to cover up the fact that she forgets, because she's kind of an airhead in that way, so she's forgetful. But she might say, like, oh, we should go together to the park tomorrow, and then maybe her friend who was supposed to come to the park is like, hey, you didn't show up to the park. You said we're gonna go to the park together. And then she'll just sort of look off in the distance and look as if she's thinking about something, but really she's like, oh shit, I totally forgot. But she wants to maintain this air of being cool. And so, I don't know. These are just silly things that I think in my head. So for Kairi, she's a goddess of lightning. Of course, she's impulsive. She's like, lightning moves fast, right? Just hits. And she's decisive. And she's Tessa's rival, the goddess of speed. And so she wants to prove that she's much faster than Tessa. And so they have races all the time. But she's a lot more dark than Tessa is. And I think of the goddesses as kind of having either a more dark character, a more neutral character, or a more light character. So here's kind of the story I came up with, that Nahia, who's the goddess of death, she wishes to overthrow the Primarch. Like, I'm thinking the Primarch is the first god that is there, and he kind of is in charge of everything. So he's the father of all the goddesses. But they all have different mothers, so that's why they all look different. And he, in this story, this is how it starts anyway. It's, of course, everything is subject to change and improvement. But he's made aware of this prophecy that one day one of his sons is going to overthrow him. And so he kills all his male sons. But Nahia, the goddess of death, she saves Mesra, who is her son, or else she conceives of him afterwards. And she wants to groom him to actually get rid of the Primarch, whose name is Adoran. So she's grooming her son, and to that end, she's also worried that Adoran's going to find out that her son exists and then kill him. So she feels he needs protection, and that's why she gets him the divine mirror and the divine sword. So the divine sword can cut through anything, so it can kill Adoran, and the divine mirror is in case Adoran tries to kill Mesra, Mesra will be able to create a duplicate of Adoran, and because Adoran's so strong and powerful, well, who could stop him? Well, himself, right? That's pretty much the only god who could be on par with him. So that's why he has those two things, and then Wraith inherits those. Although, and she thinks Wraith is Mesra, because that's what Wada, the shaman, told her, that Wraith is Mesra, and you've got to... and so it's a success. But anyway, and I figure that she makes a pact with some demons to help her in this struggle, because she knows it's going to be a big thing to go up against the Primarch. So in this way, the world kind of splits in two factions. You have those on Nahia's side who want to help her, who believe in her cause, or like I think Madra, the goddess of war, would be on Nahia's side because she just wants a war. She wants something to fight for. Whereas on the other side with Adoran, you have, I suppose, the more conservative types, the ones who want to keep everything as it is and keep things working, or just don't want war, who are pro-peace. So I also thought, yeah, so there would be those factions, but there'll also be demons, and there'll also be humans, and you'd also get like hybrids and stuff. So I thought, well, what are they going to be? And I didn't have many colors, and so I had like purple, I had pink, and I kind of liked how it looked, like this white, purple, pink, blue combination thing. So yeah, there's different types of demons, and I figured that all of them will have this wound in their head where they're kind of stabbed, and it represents their, I don't know, their brains being stabbed. The way I think of it on a psychological level is it's kind of the more impulsive side. So you're getting a stab wound in the prefrontal cortex that governs your reasoning and things, and that allows you to be more impulsive and act on instinct. And they all have black scleras with the white iris, and I was thinking back to Rava, who also has that, and I figured, oh yeah, okay, so maybe she's half demon. So maybe Adoran's not too picky about who he sires offspring with. And just thinking, like, this opens up so much fun exploration with characters. Like, oh, I can do demons and they can be anything. That's cool. Like, it's already kind of liberating to have goddesses where there's so many different types, and to include demons, that really makes things more interesting. I like this demon guy. Seems pretty cool. So basically this is more story ideas of potential things. Basically demons can procreate with animals, other demons, gods, goddesses, humans, and they can make all these hybrids, and they basically need to keep reproducing because the goddesses kill them a lot. And the way it is it's not actually not that nice for the demons, because I think in this way, I'm not going to make the demons some kind of invasion force. I'm just going to make the demons just trying to do their own thing, and the goddesses and the Primarch, especially, he kind of is like, no, we have to get rid of the demons. So it's a bit of a spin where the holy ones are actually more aggressive in this way. So here's Adoran, the Primarch, and I liked how he turned out. He came out quite similar to what I had. Basically a typical, kind of like a Zeus type character, strong, stubborn, stoic, very cliche. I kind of wanted him to be that way, in a way, at least to start with. Sometimes I just purposely create a character who's really, really cliche just because it's a good starting point to get that out there. And then once you've got that out there, you can do things like put a flip on it. Like, okay, so he's really cliche, but what if I do the exact opposite? So right now he's a super stoic old man. What if I made him a playful little girl? Could it still work? What would that be? What would a playful little girl have to turn into to become in that role? Stuff like that. In this case, I think I'm pretty satisfied with keeping him that way, the way he is. And he got the V thing, because, I don't know, give him that. Here's Mira, the goddess of victory, but I really, really didn't feel like this worked. It wasn't so much that the design is absolutely terrible, though I think it kind of is, but it's more that she's just doesn't look like a goddess of victory to me should look. And then I thought of her as kind of like, who is this type of person who would be the goddess of victory? And I thought of cheerleaders and people who are always like, yay, go team! And like, oh, kind of empty-headed in some ways, or very, I don't know, charismatic, but loud, noisy. I don't really like noisy people too much. I mean, maybe they're nice and stuff, and I think she's very nice. Very confident, very, very extroverted. Originally, I was thinking of a more classical, like Nike, the goddess of victory, more of a typical graceful person. But then after I thought of like this type of character, I was thinking maybe like a J-pop idol type person who, because here I was thinking more like a cheerleader, and I was thinking of having this type of short mini skirt type thing. And then I thought, no, I'll make it even, I'll make it different. I'll make her more like a punk who's sort of one of those just cheering everybody up, like, yay, let's go, let's do it, yeah, you can do it. And I thought maybe worshippers are a little surprised and disappointed with how the goddess of victory looks and acts. And I figure Wraith really has trouble with her, but she tries to get along with everyone and cheer everyone up and help everyone become victorious. So here, I was thinking about those hybrids. I mentioned that demons can procreate with gods, goddesses, humans, other demons, animals. And so I wanted to put some lore to that. And this is one of the things I was mentioning that, like I could, as I mentioned before, I think of the whole idea of Wraith as pretty cliche, pretty simple idea. It's not revolutionary or groundbreaking stuff, but a lot of times I just wish when I see stories that are pretty cliche, and there's almost all of them are that way, that they just put a bit more thought into things, and maybe the lore makes a bit more sense. So I kind of wanted that, where you have demon hybrids, and the mother determines what traits will be dominant. And so if you have a male, so basically I'll just read this. If you have a male demon and he impregnates a female goat, the result will be a demon goat. So it'll still be a goat, but it'll have demon characteristics, because the female is a goat. So you can imagine this. But anyway, and perhaps the goat would be able to speak or not, but it would mostly be goat aspects. But if a male goat impregnates a female demon, probably the female demon did it with the male goat, not the other way around, then the offspring is going to be a goat demon. So it's mostly a demon, but it's got goat features. So here we have like a pig demon. So the female was a demon, and in this case we have a demon pig where the female was a pig. So yeah, I figure it's insulting to tell a demon that like your grandmother was a goat, because what that means is basically so you're a watered down animal thing. It's in the female side that your goat stuff is, not the male side. Because it's okay if it's a male side, then you're a pig demon or a goat demon or whatever demon. But if you're a demon pig, you're considered lesser than. So anyway, here's a little image. And then I had to put this disclaimer that goddesses can't reproduce with animals. This is just demons. And if you have a goddess and a demon hybrid, it takes a long time for their the divine aspect to get out so that you can reproduce with animals, if that's what you want to do. All right, so I came back to Yuzu because I needed to do a body for her. I wasn't really happy with this one. That was the first one I came up with. Trying to think of something youthful, but it just didn't work. And I thought of a leaf because it feels youthful to me, like a new leaf. And I came up with this design, which feels very real world and athletic, and it has the right feeling that I'm looking for. But it's too real world. So then I, modified it and made it more like this, it's more in keeping with my own design sense. And just wanted to do a side view and a back view as well. And I was thinking about things like shoes. So, for instance, this might be like a normal shoe, maybe more like one of those N-chart designs that I was looking at. And I wanted to see, can I embellish it so it still feels like it, but it doesn't have many of the real world elements like laces and things like that. And so I came up with sort of this design, which is a bit more, futuristic and sci-fi, but it still kind of feels like a boot or a shoe. So it still got that. Then I just came up with some ideas for more goddesses. As I said, in the end, there's 100 or a bit, I guess, over 100 goddesses. I think there might only be 100. I'm not sure. But anyway, it's a lot. It's a lot of them. A lot of stuff. So I also wanted to work on, so there's demons, but I figured, well, what are Wudu and Wada, the sage and the shaman? And I figured they're a race called mystics, and they live just typical, typical goblin type, or yeah, I guess goblins are the best example. People that have a very long lifespan and a very specific body type, and you have kid mystics and older mystics, and this is a mystic warrior here, there's a mystic sage, and this is a mystic beauty. And mystic beauties to themselves think they're very beautiful, but they're very knowledgeable in the erotic arts, so that's a mystic beauty for you. And so I came up with all those different things, and now I needed crests for all the new goddesses, so safe travels. Again, it comes down to, like, if I say goddess of safe travels, it's like, what the heck is that? But I just thought of, what would people pray to? And I figure, like, if, let's say you have some parents and their kid is going, maybe the kid's like a young adult and he's going on a long voyage, who would they pray to? Well, maybe they pray to the goddess of safe travels that ensure that his journey is good and he comes home safely and stuff. A goddess of the hunt for people who are into hunting. A goddess of comfort, music, art, literature, dance. Again, it's very hard to come up with these things. Like this one with the dance, it's not really high up. Because I'm doing everything traditionally and in pen, I can't mess up, which isn't great. I mean, it's kind of limiting. Luckily now, I don't have to do that. I use an iPad with Procreate, so it's much easier. But at the time, I was definitely still struggling. Beasts, like trying to think of, okay, so these are horns. This is like the snout. These are the eyes of a beast. These are like representing fangs. I reuse a lot of the same shapes for the cheek things especially, but they all mean different things. So with art, it's kind of like a brush. Architecture is a structure, and then maybe a person inside or a door and a window. It's not entirely sure what's what, but, you know, at least it gives you an idea. Gardening, I think of it like, here's the ground, and here's the leaves, and here is a thing underground, like the tuber or whatever. Vigilance, I think of as open eyes. And the harvest is basically the same as the gardening, but you pull it out, and so you pulled out this vegetable, and some dirt flies out, and you now have harvested your thing. Promises. I was struggling with the goddess of promises. I wanted to have something like a treasure chest where someone keeps a promise contained, but this felt too so I settled on this one. I liked it more. Originally, like, this poison is just upside down of the goddess of medicine. I changed it to this one. I'm Michael, goddess of farts. So this is Atlas, the goddess of safe travels. She's very kind, generous, optimistic. Just a kind, nice person, really. I figure she's got her own, like, quirks. Maybe she's a bit selfish, a bit vain, maybe, but overall just a nice person. Derla is a very cold, rational person. She's the goddess of the hunt, so she has to be patient and calm, because she has to, that's what you need to be. And I suppose she's respecting animals insofar as they will serve her things, but not really a nice person, I would say. Whereas Jaluma, the goddess of comfort, is just like a very warm person, wants to feed you, wants to take care of you. And Listel is the goddess of music, and I figure she's blind, and that helps her hear more so. She has big ears, and she's very, very diligent in her practicing, and I think she does a lot for teaching. Whereas the goddess of art is a bit more cocky and not really that nice of a person. She's always squinting because she's checking her values, so her eyes are always like squinted. I wonder if non-artists are gonna know that. I guess not. If Wraith ever got into the non-artist sphere, I think that would be. It's just an inside joke that she's always squinting. And Quinn is the goddess of literature. This is really bad because I gave her so many negative characteristics. She's arrogant, smug, dismissive of others, antisocial, inquisitive. That's good. She's inquisitive and she's intelligent. That's good. Sarcastic, imaginative, blunt, loyal and kind to her few friends, and then stone-faced unless she hears a funny joke, and then she loses it. Laughs like that. That's how I think of her. Anyway, now we have Lanya, who's the goddess of dance. So I have to think about what is she and what purpose would she serve, and I figure she can do the dance of death, kill you, but also be very hypnotic and seductive and things. And Kari is Derla's arch enemy, because Kari is the goddess of beasts, and she has a beast fist. And I think like, they're all goddesses, but I imagine before that there were gods, and Adoran, the Primarch, just killed them, and he left the female line because they're not gonna kill him. So I think that's fine. But she's very friendly towards animals and likes animals and really hates Derla. Here's Marla, who's the goddess of history. I think, she's got a morbid sense of humor, because I think that's just what history. It has a lot of morbidity to it, and she's always got an anecdote, because she always knows, oh yeah, this reminds me of this time, 500 years ago there was this queen and she thought this and did this and whatever and blah, whatever. Here's Vestra. She's the goddess of fashion. She may be hiding something. But yeah, very, very opinionated, full of herself, just fashion designer type person. Zelphi is the goddess of architecture. See, with some of them, they look kind of ridiculous like this, but they have bigger forms. When I add when I see them, for some of them, I figure, yeah, there is a body that kind of makes this fit more, but it might be a bit silly looking in this smaller scale. Very detail-oriented and logical. Figure she's deadpan. And Zyka is the goddess of vengeance. So this is who you would call or pray to when you want someone to take out someone who did you harm. And I figure she's been a victim. She's been through a lot, and that's why she's very vengeful, and she thinks it's a good thing and it's an appropriate thing and it needs to be done. That there needs to be justice, and people can't get away with doing terrible things. So in a way, I guess she's not a bad character per se, but she's not at all like Rava, who's the goddess of pain and suffering, who just wants to cause suffering to people. She's more like, no, if she thinks you did something bad, then you deserve to be punished. But then she's very brutal, and she's kind of naive and simple in her thinking. But she's also very kind to people who she thinks haven't done anything wrong. So if she thinks you're an innocent, she'll be nice to you and she'll be fine. But she thinks you're one of the bad ones, and she's not going to be so nice. Taliko, I think, is very, very fisherman-like. Of course, she's a goddess. And, she likes her alcohol and just lazy a lot of the times in some ways. Although I'm not saying fishermen are lazy, I'm just saying she is. And May is... I have two Mays. One is May with an E, and one is not, I think. But she's the goddess of gardening, hardworking. I like to think about their personalities a lot, and if I could convey that, she's kind of, her face is not two-tone, by the way. This is just me not being able to blend well. But yeah, just capturing an expression of someone and that encapsulating their personality, that's really, really important to me. And yeah, she doesn't dwell on failure. She's optimistic, because I figure if you're a gardener, you've got to kind of be that way, because a lot of times nature throws stuff at you, which you can control. You might have put in a lot of work in your gardening, and then some act of nature, maybe it got very cold one night, or there was a hailstorm or something, and now your crops, which you worked so hard on, are not going to be around anymore, and that sucks, but you just deal with it, right? So with Niluma, she's the goddess of vigilance. So she's kind of like the guard who's always keeping her eye out for demons. Very self-righteous. Thinks she's not arrogant, because she thinks she has a higher purpose, but she views her purpose as very, very important. And I think she has this divine tool called the Divine Eye, and within that, it reveals any hidden object or person. And for instance, if you use the Divine Eye on a creature that was summoned with the Divine Mirror, that creature would disappear because it's just an illusion. This will dispel illusions. And that can be useful against some of the other goddesses. And again, I think of this in a video game function of she's the dispeller. So if someone has a buff that makes them invisible and it helps them, target enemies and do stealth attacks, well, if you're in her line of sight, that buff disappears and you'll be seen and probably attacked and killed. And she also has the same tailor as Devana, the goddess of rain, the one that's sort of sword-like, but I didn't want her to have as cool a design, so I made hers a bit less cool. I don't know, maybe it's still okay. It kind of reminds me of the I think it's called the Blackwing, I'm not sure, the ship in the X-Men. Anyway, this is Pumpkin, the goddess of stamina. She's very young, I figured, because stamina, kids have tons of stamina. And she's basically just a kid. There's a few kid ones. Galoo is a kid. And so, there's still some younger goddesses as well. Luvella is the goddess of rhythm. And yeah, basically this passionate, impulsive, intense, honest, loud, confident. I guess she'd get along with the goddess of victory, Mira. Here's Meredia. She's the goddess of eloquence. I figure she's the type of person that tries really hard, but doesn't really... Like, you can tell it's not natural charisma. It's really worked at charisma, and she's kind of nervous. And this, again, is just basing things off people I know, fine, she's the goddess of eloquence. So she can speak well and clearly, but she's really tried to do that. So she really enunciates her words. So here I was thinking of Luvella, the goddess of rhythm, just, putting her in a different situation. Mostly I just wanted to show that she's not at all too flashy. Whereas with Vispa, who's the goddess of games, I figure she might be. I like this hat, but it doesn't really work because it's too almost steampunky, industrial, and but it's kind of interesting. And I thought maybe she has a crystal and it can make objects from her imagination into reality. So she's kind of she's goddess of games, but if you think about the consequences of this, they can be pretty dire. Her hat can produce many toys and games, but she can also materialize objects from her imagination. That could be pretty powerful. And I thought maybe she has a bigger crystal like this. And I felt pretty dead here. I had done a lot of Wraith designs, and I was just kind of pooped. So I just thought, it's okay, don't force it. If you're not in the mood, if you're not feeling up to it, just do other things. So this guy's intruder alert, and this one is, yes, I see it. And I don't know why this guy. My name, John Wallace Baker Pemberton. Don't forget it. I don't know. Anyway, Miriam, she is not supposed to have a head that's so big. It just came out big, and it's supposed to be a normal sized head. She's a goddess of resolve. She's who you would pray to if you want to do something difficult, but you're kind of on the fence about it. I guess if you were gonna make a New Year's resolution, you would pray to her, and she's very stoic and disciplined. That's the major thing. Is she's super disciplined. She feels she is locked in an eternal struggle with her own weaknesses and fear, and she must never falter or allow her weakness and fear to win. So I figure with her, her power changes depending on how resolved she is. And I'll show you that in the future. Bala is the goddess of happiness. Very, very positive person, because I figure you can't be that happy if you're not. So she laughs a lot. She's very grateful and accepting. She doesn't really make jokes, but she just laughs a lot. Even if it's not really funny, just whatever. She's that type of person. So her crest is just like a happy smile, but I didn't want it to look exactly like a happy smile, so I had to kind of hide it. So, because I don't want them to look stupid, the crests. I still want them to look okay. So, Alves is the goddess of childbirth. So, hers thing is basically the female genitalia. And in this, it's this dot represents a baby inside the womb and then coming out of the womb. So, the dot, the arrow. So, like, it all has meaning, but anyway. And she's who you call after you've had the goddess of fertility help you out. And 9 months later, you'd probably want to pray to the goddess of childbirth. And she's one of those goddesses who, like the toys one in the games, she has like a divine tool, which seems like, oh, she's just the goddess of childbirth, but it's actually super, super useful. So her divine satchel allows her to, anything she puts in it, she can reuse infinitely. So, like, I figure she would need lots of diapers, right? And lots of milk and stuff. And so this allows her to just have a lot of those types of tools always at her disposal. But she could put anything in that. She could put like a grenade and then just have infinite grenades. So I figure her divine satchel is, in a video game, it's pretty overpowered. Because you can just dupe objects, items. And so Duduma is the goddess of fun. I wanted her to be sort of insect-like. And she's old, but she's very naughty, very rude, vulgar. She likes to prank people. She's obscene. She likes to do like that. Thinks life's a joke. Remna is the goddess of memory, and her name is because of basically like remember, but also RAM, RAM, because she has like memory on her storage devices, and yeah, so some are not as powerful as others, but if you have a lot of worshippers, you still get powerful in a way. So I figure a lot of old people might be praying to the goddess of memory. Maybe a lot of students who are studying for exams might pray to the goddess of memory. She's reliable and stable, but she can be easily manipulated. She's sure of herself, and maybe she can help people remember parts of themselves that they forgot. Maybe she might go to an older person and help them remember what they used to be like. So that can be powerful too. Honera is the goddess of bones. So usually the goddess of bones would be someone who's quite... the typical thing might be undead creating creature person. But with her, it's not really the whole skeletal army thing. She's not really bad. It's more bones as in... She likes skeletons, but it's just bones. Like a bone is rigid and supportive and stoic. It's more like a foundational thing. She believes in the beauty of the hidden deep and the structural. So, fairly dense because goddess of bones. So I thought that was an interesting spin on things. Vista is the goddess of flight. I wanted to do something fast, and so this big shape, I think, is very fast-like, and she's very quick-witted and independent and adventurous. And at first I just wanted to get the feeling of movement, so this isn't perfect, but I think that can also be a good way of exploring design is get the first thing out, the movement. Here was a plot idea that didn't really work. I was thinking maybe the Primarch Adoran is one of many immortal beings known as the philosophers, and they are a group of interdimensional travelers and scientists tasked with answering the question, what is the best way to govern a planet? And each philosopher was assigned a planet to test how well they could, as a god, develop their ideal paradise. So it's more like scientists who are just running experiments. And maybe Earth had a philosopher who oversaw and inspired all the religions, and he flies in a 747. So it would make it so Adoran and the goddesses are aliens. I'm not gonna be doing that story. So here's Dharazana. She's the goddess of promises, and she would be someone who binds people. For instance, two people getting married may have to say their vows to her, and what she has is like a divine chain which can bind two things together and make it so you are stuck in the thing. So yeah, she hates small talk. Felda, I didn't really like her design at all. I didn't like these orbs. They didn't come out right. I wanted to evoke like a cornucopia, and so she's a goddess of the harvest. Again, that's the opposite of the gardener one, or at least the gardening one, and the cheeks is upside down. And I think of her as very generous and warm, but kind of not like super hygienic, but not gonna get sick because she just like walks around. Maybe she walks around barefoot in the soil or something and just like picks up stuff and just brushes dirt away. Doesn't necessarily wash things super well, but just a kind person. Quite oblivious to how others perceive her. She's not judgmental. So yeah, generous. If she has a lot of stuff, she's always gonna offer something to you. Here's May. Oh, it's Mae, the other May. She's a goddess of sweets. She's another one of the kid goddesses, and I think the kid goddesses probably hang out with each other. For her design, I just wanted to invoke things like the peppermint candy cane type things here, and just sweets. She's impatient and naughty, and sometimes she's generous, sometimes she's stingy. She's not really a good influence, because the idea that she encourages acting without thinking about consequences is more like, well, if you want to eat something super sweet like a dessert but it's bad for you, maybe you're on a diet, she's more towards like, yeah, just do it, it's gonna be so good. Anyway, Vixis is the goddess of spice, so she's the opposite of sweets. I guess these two are, who would pray to the goddess of sweets and the goddess of spice? I don't know. But yeah, I just had a goddess of spice and a goddess of sweets, so that's a thing, and she's kind of sadistic. So in the next episode, we're going to be keeping on with different designs and exploring more things and explaining, the thought process that goes behind them. So I hope this is enjoyable. I hope it's not really disappointing people, and I hope it helps. And thanks for watching.